president and you're in charge of the programming for an organization called Put Me In. Is that correct? Did I get it right?
That's right. Yeah, okay. Thanks for having me, Olga.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So Put Me In has a little bit of a sporty sound to it. So can you tell everybody who's not familiar with the organization what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. So Put Me In, we help kids with parents in prison play sports. And it really goes down to like the name of our organization where we're putting them into the game. There's about 5 million kids across the country with a parent in prison or jail. And what we're trying to do is just level the playing field where they all can have access to the same life-changing benefits of sports that I have. And as Olga and I were chatting earlier about that her son's having right now. So what we do is we give each kid $1,000 a year in financial aid that goes towards registration fees, equipment, and travel, just so they can be like any other kid and have access to the same benefits.
So I appreciate how you just slipped right in level playing field. So I think we'll have a lot of sports metaphors throughout the day today.
Absolutely.
So I find that statistic 5 million to be quite high and quite shocking. I don't think most people are familiar. Can you talk a little bit about why sport? You alluded to that, but why through sport? Wouldn't they be better off in an art camp or some other type of activity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can only speak about it personally. For me, sports were so critical growing up, where I learned skills around resilience, perseverance, hard work, determination, and just self-confidence. I know that I felt my self-esteem rise after my team won, or even if we lost and I played well, or my coach told me that I improved in that one little thing that we've been working on in practice over the weeks. And so some of those critical life skills that you learn through sports prepare you for those everyday activities that you're going through as you're growing up. And we think the communities that are involved with sports are also just so essential, where it's such a rare occurrence to have a whole community of team where you have peers, teammates, coaches, other parents on the team out there supporting you. One anecdote, I was at a junior Olympics for track last year, and I was looking around watching one of our athletes run. And before she goes out into the track, I'm looking out onto the bleachers where all the kids are sitting, waiting for their turn to go. And there's all these kids running around, and there's not a single specific parent watching their own kid. What it is, it's like a community of kid parents all watching each other's kids together. And that's when it kind of clicks, where sports are a village, and not every kid is to have that village. And so what we're trying to do is get kids involved into the game where they can have an opportunity to be cared for by others when they might be missing one or two parents. Through sports, they have an opportunity to replace those figures.
So I think it's also fair to say, and I like where you're going with that. It's not just about winning or being the best or being, professional or collegiate athlete. It's about participation.
Absolutely. It's just getting involved. The routine that comes from sports can carry over to every facet of life. We've got kids in our program that may never play on a high school field, but they're competing at a relatively popular, relatively strong level on a rec league right now. And that is teaching them skills of perseverance and consistency. We've got one kid in our program who was barely reading at a pre-K level in the 3rd grade. And when you think about that, what does pre-K mean? Like it's not reading at all. But through the consistency of going to karate year over year and day over day, his sensei instilled on him that he can't come into the dojo unless he's done his homework and done his reading. And within a year's time, he's reading on level. So he went from reading at a pre-K level to reading at a 4th grade level in that 1 year. And all of that can be pointed back to his consistency through sports. And when we think about it, that's what our program's trying to do. We're not trying to develop the next Tom Brady or CJ Stroud. We're developing leaders and just successful citizens because of the skills that they're able to put together through sports.
So, by the way, for non-sporty viewers, those were some well-known athletes. Like I think Tom Brady played football or something, but best known for being married formerly to Giselle. So, can you talk a little bit about your own sports journey? Were you always into sports? Like, what was your introduction to athletics?
Yeah, absolutely. I can still remember my my very first season of t-ball when I was, I think, 5 years old. And like most t-ballers, like I had the journey of playing in the outfield in the dirt and not wanting to actually be out there, but I was out there because my mom told me to, and she said it'd be good for me. But I remember that season, I wasn't really interested in being there at all. But at the end of the season, I look out and we're there for like the final ceremony, closing ceremonies of the season, and then there's a golf cart that rides by with these huge trophies. And I asked my mom, how do I get one of those? Like, I want one of those trophies instead of this little tiny medal that they gave me just for showing up. And she said, those are for the all-stars. Like, you gotta actually care. You gotta work hard and focus and do well, and you can earn one of those. And I think at that moment it just kind of clicked. Where the next year I come back as a 6-year-old in the t-ball field, and I volunteer to be the pitcher. In t-ball, the pitcher is pretty much the only one that makes plays, and so I'm catching every ball and sprinting to first base and tagging kids out, and end up making the all-star team. And that's kind of when it clicked. Where if you work hard, good things come. And then
Mhm.
like that's like that the very first memory of that, which is just super powerful for me.
Did you stick with baseball, or did you eventually evolve into other sports?
Yes, I eventually moved on to other sports. I think I played baseball until I was in the 8th grade, and then but all through growing up, I played football, basketball, baseball, and then eventually dabbled in track a little bit as well. So I think being a well-rounded athlete is incredibly important as well.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about role models. And athletes oftentimes are, kids and adults, frankly, look up to athletes as role models. Do athletes have a responsibility to show certain character traits on and off the playing field?
I love this question. So growing up, one of my favorite athletes, just from a media sense, was Charles Barkley, and he's got this famous commercial that's "I'm not a role model," and I think there's this inherent responsibility that comes with being a role model when you're in the public spotlight. But I think
Mhm.
it's the responsibility of the people that are in kids' lives on a day-to-day basis that they should be that primary role model. Like, absolutely, athletes have a responsibility to be minding their P's and Q's and
Mhm.
following like the law. But I think it comes down to those day-to-day mentors that are really truly life changing. Where I think growing up, I can't really think of one specific athlete that was my role model, but I can think back to some of those coaches that were heavily involved in my life, and I knew I could always count on them, and those were my core role models, like my coaches, my grandparents, my mom, like those people that were with me on a day in and day out basis. Like those are the people that I knew I could count on. And at a certain extent, Charles is right. Like it's not his responsibility to shape what our kids are looking at. And I think that's just a really powerful commercial that was from back in maybe the 80s or 90s.
And those coaches are no joke. If you've ever met football coaches or other sports coaches, like they're no joke. They take it very, very seriously.
Absolutely. And I think part of them being hard on you is prepare you for some of those obstacles you're going to face later on in life. Like having having some adults yell at you that you need to work harder, you need to push through adversity. Those are some of those same things that like when you're grinding for a college paper at midnight, you can think back to like, I used to run gassers in 100-degree weather in high school, and
Mhm.
like this is nothing. This is easy. And so it's always that compared to what mentality. And I think a lot of that comes from some of the coaches and some of those other key mentors I had in my life.
Mental toughness.
Absolutely.
So you in college you studied, I believe it was geology, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
That's
chemistry and
what I took
geology.
from Yeah, that's what I took from my science requirement because I couldn't hack it in chemistry. Um, so and then eventually you made your way to social good sector. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, so I think I've kind of had a pretty windy career path where I started off working for the world's largest gold mining company, and then went into consulting, where I started off consulting for oil and gas and mining companies, and then tech companies, and then I was doing private equity due diligence work for tech companies. While I was doing one of those consulting jobs in 2020, I was catching up with one of my best friends from college, and he told me that he had just connected with another former Yale football player who was working on this initiative to help kids and parents in prison. And I got off the phone and just had like this dawning moment that I was one of those kids. See, I grew up on a farm in Alabama, and my dad went away when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And if it wasn't for my community coming together and pushing me through sports, and I never would have an opportunity to go to a place like Yale that had given me this windy career path where I'd been introduced to so many interesting people. And I can pinpoint that sports and people sponsoring my sports participation was so critical to my success. So I immediately wanted to get involved. And it was one of those things where I never thought I would be doing it on a day to day basis. It was just going to be like, let's see what we can build here. And I want to help wherever I can. After about 2.5 years of being a fully volunteer ran organization, we got a really great grant to fund someone to join the team full time. And our board came to me with that opportunity. And it just felt like it was too good to be true to be able to apply all the principles I've had in my day to day job for the last 5, 6 years, and then help kids that were in my shoes, where I can look out and I can look at the kids in our program, and I look into Rodney's eyes or to Cam's eyes and say, like, that was me as a kid. Like, it was just a super powerful thing that I couldn't say no to. And 2.5 years later, after running the organization, I'm still here, and it's just kind of been like the happiest I've ever been. Like, being able to grow this has just been such a great impact.
And I just want to underscore a little bit your journey from growing up in rural setting, and kind of on the farm. You said your father left away, and I assume you alluded incarcerated, and then going on to play football at Yale. So that's a remarkable. Most people don't do that.
Yeah, I definitely feel lucky. One of the things I've said frequently is that I'm the luckiest kid in the world, where like I had all this adversity thrown at me, but I had this amazing support system that supported me across that journey, and it was just incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, this is great. So let me shift gears a little bit. So before we hopped on the call, and you and I have not met before. So some people I interview I've known for 10 plus years. This is our first conversation. I did a little snooping, and I believe somewhere between football and what you do today, there was a little bit of a stint as a rugby player.
That's correct.
Okay. So are you familiar with NPR's game, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me?
I don't think so.
So I will give you 3 statements, and you'll have to tell me which one is correct one. I think you'll get it. And football, American football, I should say, and rugby, there's some seeming similarities, but they're very different sports. Rugby rules confuse the heck out of me personally. So that's the game. You're going to have to tell me if it's American football or rugby.
Got it.
Are you up for it?
Yeah.
Should be easy. All right. Well, let's see if I can stump you. So let me start out with an easy one. The term called maul, and I have some notes that I'm going to refer to here. Maul. A, it's a rugby play where a player with a ball is swarmed by teammates and opponents shuffling forward like a conga line. B, a football term for when 3 or more defenders tackle the ball carrier simultaneously. Or C, Trader Joe's parking lot before Super Bowl weekend.
That's a tough one. I'm struggling between A and C, but I'm gonna have to go A there.
A there. Okay. And we'll drop them in the comments so everybody can participate. Okay, next one. Are you ready? Even I know this one. Fumble. An American football term for when player loses possession of the ball, usually followed by very slow motion replay. B, a rugby move where the ball slips mid-pass and everyone pretends it didn't happen. Or C, when I'm asked to explain the rules of either sport at a party.
I'm going to go A again, but you're doing a great job with the rules today.
Okay. All right. Thank you. 2 more. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. This one is a little bit slightly inappropriate one. Scrum. A rugby restart where players lock arms, crouch, and push rather than it looks a little bit like a ritual. B, a football formation behind center. Or C, a part of anatomy.
I'm going A again.
You're going to go with A again. Okay. Let's mix this up. Last one. You're so far 3 for 3. So let's see if you can get a perfect score here.
Let's do
Hail
it.
Mary. A Scottish rugby chant. An American football term for desperate long pass. Or Sabrina Carpenter latest hit.
I'm gonna have to go B here on this one. It's football pass.
Football pass. You passed, so you got 4 out of 4.
There we go. The Yale education pays off.
Stay in school, kids, and then you can play American football versus rugby. Well, thank you so much for being on. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope we can continue talking and advancing the power of sports to show not just young lives, but really all of us. And I just really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Olga. It was so much fun.
See you soon.